This is the time and place for a city commission meeting on May 12th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wabash.
Present.
Mayor Harrington.
Here. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
approval of agenda. We do have some items that we're going to amend the agenda on. They are in the personal items 4.4, number 4. We're going to remove Courtney Gerke from the agenda, and we're going to change Mila Theobar from lifeguard to concession at $10 per hour. Any other agenda changes that you people would have? If not, I'd ask for a roll call vote. Need a motion to attend. Yeah, got a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve the agenda with the amendment.
Commissioner Smith, I need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robish. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wabash.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Public forum. Public comments may be sent to during a live meeting broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. This link is listed on the city's website at www.huronsd.com city government. In order to use the YouTube chat feature, please create an account with your YouTube and Gmail or use your existing accounts. Please state your name, address for the record. Public forum is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per person. And we have our HR director, Nathan Hofer, sitting on the computer back there. And so if you use YouTube and have a question to get a hold of Nathan, he'll wave at me or throw his hat at me, and we'll try to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, does anybody have anything they want to public forums? Anybody have any public forum? Yes.
One thing, I just want to remind that tomorrow's election day for the school and city. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 7 p.m. at the Huron Arena.
Okay. I have a public forum issue here, and I'll read it to you. The third meeting of the Beaver County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan was held April 7th, 2021, over Zoom. At this meeting, completion of the previous projects and goals were reviewed and updated. The Beaver County Natural Hazard Mitigation Survey responses were reported and current development was discussed. A rough draft of the plan will be made available to the planning members May 21st for comments. Following the comments, the plan will be made publicly available for review and will be submitted to the state and FEMA for approval. Once approval, the plan must be adopted by jurisdictions through resolution to the plan to be final. We've had 3 meetings on that. I think we have 1 left, and we'll tie up our mitigation plan. So if we have some disasters, we can be eligible for FEMA money, hopefully. So with that, we can move on. Consent agenda. Matters appearing on a consent agenda are expected to be non-controversial and will be acted upon by the commission at one time without discussion. Unless a member of the commission requests an opportunity to address any given items removed from the consent agenda will be discussed at the beginning of the formal items. 4.1, minutes of April 5th, 2021. 4.2, fuel quotes for city departments. 4.3, proclamation National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 11th through the 17th. 4.4, 1, correction to transfer wage of Taj Lark to Detective Sergeant. 2, accept the resignation of Sonia Cabin as a 9/11 telecommunicator from the police department. 3, post and advise 9/11 telecommunication position to the police department. 4, recommend hiring of seasonal employees for Spice Central and for Parks and Recreation. This is where we have the agenda As I stated earlier, we've already talked on that, so. Number 4.5 is payment of the bills. I need a roll call vote on this. I need a motion and a roll call vote. Motion, please.
Move to approve consent.
Mr. Smith, move to approve the consent. Second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Bragg. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Number 5, bid quote items. I see we have our assistant engineer, Dennis, here with us tonight, and we'll go over 5.1 if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for the infrastructure design group. Designed the sewer for the Vantage Business Park, out where Northwestern's doing their expansion. And this is, we're just asking for permission to go to bid. The engineer's estimate is $1,702,100.
Okay. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Bragg, second.
Second.
Mr. Smith. Discussion.
Nice of them to round it off.
Yeah. It's not $100 off, it's all good.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Robert. Mayor Harrington.
Aye. 5.2, Dennis.
Okay, this is for a water main replacement job that was bid last week. Menning Excavating out of Mitchell came in as low bidder, and they came in at $1,099,230.50,
50 cents.
and recommend approval.
Okay, motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Smith, motion approved. Second,
Second.
Commissioner Rogers. Discussion.
I have a question if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Smith.
Early on, Dennis, are you finding, nothing against the contractors that provided bids, but is that pretty tight supply? As
For
far as
the
contractors?
Right now it is, but the locals are tied up with bigger projects that they carry over.
Yeah, yeah, I just
So
didn't
right
know
now-
if there's a lot of projects going on and,
I was surprised we only had 2 bids. We had 5 or 6 download plans, said they were gonna bid, but they didn't, so.
yeah,
Mhm.
a lot of stuff going on.
Yep, yep,
Thank you.
yep.
So
Yes.
it's on this, just based on what our estimates were for when we went out, was this within the range?
I was gonna write that down, but I was thinking we were 1.3 was our estimate, so. We're a little under our estimate, so we're good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Robert. Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Thanks, Dennis.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Number 6, petitions and communications. Our city attorney Tucker Valesky is going to handle this. 6.1.
Thank you, Mayor. 6.1, consider memorandum of understanding with Northern State University for graduate academic programs delivered at Huron Community Campus and authorize the mayor, HCC director, and HCC board chair to sign. I do believe we have Mr. Peets here. And if he has anything to add about these memorandums, I would leave that to him. Yep.
Mayor, Commissioners. I guess starting with the first one, the memorandum of understanding for the undergraduate program. Just the simple changes in there, we really laid out the direct program going back to the Board of Regents and what their policies are for the Associates of General Studies, the Associates of Science and Business Administration, and the general, just the general associate degree. It is for 4 years. We have been doing these for 2 years. This one lays it out for 4 years. Just adds a little bit more streamline to it. Plus it allows us to really work with students to put them from an associate to a bachelor's degree. really doesn't affect us in Huron, but it does help the students lay out a four-year program and a four-year study. There, the other things in here really doesn't change. I just want to bring it to your attention that under responsibilities, the second paragraph halfway through, and I try to take this out every year, and every year they don't allow me to take this out. 100% of disability support services, which may include interpreter service, equipment, materials, and travel. So we have to bring in, say, a sign language interpreter. That is our expense 100%. There was some unknown in there at one time, and so we really specify it out within this MOU. And then on the next page, the course scheduling, you can see it broke down from the fall of '21 to the summer of '25. We use an academic year, fall, spring, summer, to lay out the program. Otherwise, everything in here is pretty much the same as it has been. We do have the Amendment A to it, where it lays out fall odd years, spring even, summer even, fall even, spring odd, summer odd. So we have it laid out in very much a rotation of courses that's very defined and very definitive as far as when the course is going to happen, how they're going to happen, so students know from semester to semester how things are going to be offered. The undergraduate, or excuse me, the graduate program, once again, same thing. You'll see this one is for 5 years instead of 4 years. We did that too on purpose, offset them. Plus, if we went for 4 years because of the pandemic last year, we just extended the MOUs that we were under. So now we have, if we did it for 4 years, we would end in the middle of a cohort. And so we put it out 5 years so we can get to a graduation of a cohort. And then we decide to do it again, we would have a new MOU then for that preceding fall, which would be the fall of 2026. Okay? Otherwise, pretty much the same thing. It lays out, both of them lay out the price of tuition, which I thought they, since the Board of Regents changed tuition a couple weeks ago, I thought they might give me a call, but they have not, so we stay the same cost of tuition-wise. Courses are laid out just like on the undergraduate program, same thing for the graduate program. Here's a list of courses that we offer that are required to receive your graduate degree in teaching and learning. Okay? So that's those two MOUs for your consideration. Questions for me?
6.1, need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Move to approve, Commissioner Smith, second.
Second.
Commissioner Bragg. Any discussion for, any questions for Doug? Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Robish. Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Thank you. Doug, 6.2, Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, 6.2 is the Memorandum of Understanding, and that is for the undergraduate academic programs, which Doug just gave an overview of as well.
Motion for 6.2, please.
Move to approve 6.2.
Commissioner Smith, motion to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Robish. Any discussion on this, 6.2? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. 6.2 pass. 7, ordinance and resolutions. 7.1, our city attorney Tucker Valesky will speak on this.
Thank you, Mayor. 7.1, first reading of ordinance number 2223-5-131, Northwestern Corporation franchise, and set second reading for April 9th. This is the franchise for the Northwestern franchise here in the city of Huron. It expires after 20 years, so we're looking to renew it here. From the last ordinance franchise that was passed to this one, mainly there was some cleanup and streamlining the language as to substantive changes. Two that I would note is the natural gas tariff. That has come into effect since the franchise was first passed 20 years ago, and that qualifies the entire franchise. Other than the reference to the natural gas tariff, as to the liability, the previous franchise had more of a strict liability standard, whereas Northwestern proposes that the language be changed to more of a negligence standard at this point. So those would be the two substantive changes that I would note, in addition to the mainly cleaning up of the language and streamlining it. The engineering department has reviewed the franchise. They did not have any proposals for it, as has finance. The only proposals that were made from the previous franchise were those put forth by Northwestern, and the substantive ones being the references to the natural gas tariff and the strict liability standard changing to now a negligence standard. I'd also note that in the audience, we do have representatives from Northwestern to answer any questions that there may be. Mr. Tom Glanzer and Ms. Cassie Russell.
Okay, I need a motion to
Move
approve.
to approve first reading.
Commissioner Smith, motion to approve, need a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gray. Okay. Any discussion on this topic? Any questions for Tom?
Could,
Yes, go ahead.
Tucker, could you elucidate a little bit more when you said the change in the liability? Does that impact the city, or what is that, the change in the negligence language versus the previous liability? How does that, what, can you just explain kind of in simple language what that change is?
Right, so the previous language in the franchise provided for a strict liability. So basically, any damage arising out of the franchise, any damage, whether Northwestern would be at fault for negligence or not, they would be responsible. Whether or not that would hold up and eventually hold up in a court of law, it's debatable. Now, the new language is negligence, so only when Northwestern is negligence and that results in damage would they be held liable. Whereas any damage resulting out of the franchise would hold them liable under the previous language.
In your legal opinion, does that have a substantial change for the way things would move for the city in the future?
I don't know that it would, because I don't know, I'm not of the opinion necessarily that the previous language would hold up, would be even legal. The negligence standard, it's Northwestern's position, it's the more appropriate standard, because that's attributing liability based on negligence, whereas the previous standard, they were liable for any damage arising out of it.
Yeah, Commissioner Poole?
And you know, we get this like on Friday afternoon, and I have not studied it a lot, but so where did it come from? Did it come from Northwestern wanting to go to a negligence standard?
Yes.
And so you're just saying, okay, let's go along with it because maybe strict liability might not be enforceable anyway, but it could be.
I agree that it could be, and it's not my position that we should necessarily go along with it. It's for the commission to consider. It is Northwestern's proposal.
And I guess the big problem I have with it is, I mean, would this cover like a natural gas spill or something?
If Northwestern were negligent.
Yeah, but if they weren't negligent, somebody's gonna be fighting it out as to who has to pay for the cleanup, right?
That'd be
Or the
correct.
damages to the property.
That'd be correct.
Even though we have a company that's traded on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, with deep pockets. You see what I'm saying?
Correct, I do, I appreciate that.
So I'm a little concerned about that change. I mean, I don't have any problem with renewing the agreement. I mean, it's operated well for 20 years, right? Is it 20?
Yep.
So this is a 20-year renewal is
Yeah.
also. But that would seem to be a significant change that, I don't know if it's warranted by the facts, and I don't know if it's warranted by the law either.
Can you guys speak to, I mean, is this in other communities? Is this a change you're making everywhere, or?
Cassie can probably speak a little bit more to the negligent stuff, but the wording in this, in the new, some of the stuff is 20 to 40 to 60 years old, some of the contract language. That's why our Attorney General wanted to clean things up, make sure that everything kind of read the same according to our tariffs and according to how things have operated over the last 20 years. Aberdeen's the most recent one that we have to compare it to, and this mirrors what Aberdeen, and my phone just shut off, but the new the agreement does mirror exactly what's happening in Aberdeen. Cassie can talk to the negligent issue side of things.
Yeah, so I mean, really what it's just saying is, obviously we will repair any damage that occurs by anyone. I mean, it's our facility, we want it to operate, right, and avoid interruptions. What it's just saying is obviously who ends up responsible for those costs. If someone is negligent, a contractor, we would hold them responsible. We've never had any issues with that, but if it's something that Northwestern becomes, we're negligent, then obviously we pay for it. But that's really all it's referring to. It's just a cleanup and adding of that we may bill a contractor if they hit our service. We do that. I just had it happen last week. So it's just saying that we may not solely pay for that repair if we are not the ones determined negligent.
So in that situation, other contracts, or as the contract stands now, in that situation, how is that being approached?
Because of, like Tucker alludes to, the liability, contractors usually know I don't have any issues. I haven't had a contractor say, no, it's not my fault. We do a thorough investigation of every hit, and we take pictures if it was if it's not located. I have 2 great examples from last week. They didn't happen here, but first one was not located. Well, it's our responsibility as the operator to make sure that's located, so that contractor is not charged for that. Okay. The other one, it was located, but the contractor just gets sloppy and decides to hit it anyways. When we show up on site, we do a full investigation, we have conversations, and I will tell you 9 times out of 10 the contractor's like, yep, I got too close, a little too careless, and they know they're getting billed for it. And we don't have any issues with that.
I'm not an attorney, so, I don't know.
Me neither, so.
But I think, when I'm thinking through just the common sense side of it, it sounds like any of those issues, you keep saying this happened and Northwestern investigated it, and Northwestern determined how it should be billed, which I like the idea of the liability, because then it is for Northwestern to decide. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean Northwestern pays for it, but I'm a little leery with this language that if it's not specific negligence, could there be a scenario where something happens that then the city is left making those determinations? And that's the piece where right now, the way it's been written, it sounds like regardless whether it was negligence or not, you guys would sort that out. Under this language, I could see, and again, I'm not an attorney, but I could see a standpoint where something happens, and if it's not deemed to be something that was Northwestern's negligence, then does that fall back on the city to sort it out? That would be my main concern.
Good concern, and I can take it back to our attorney, because I'll be honest.
Yeah, and maybe that's what we should do, because, it's a hold harmless clause that we're dealing with here. And so before, they just said, okay, for the city giving us the right to operate this gas franchise, we're gonna hold the city harmless, regardless of what happens. And that's a good deal for the city. But now, for the city to be held harmless, the damage or the problem has to be caused by the negligence of Northwestern. So in the situation that you said, where a contractor has been negligent, well, and then the contractor says, no, that wasn't me, and then, so now we're left with a problem here.
Yeah, and I would
A
also.
potential problem.
Right, I agree, and I will say, I should have brought the really old document with me, but I think the other concern too is that if the contractor is working on behalf of the city, you know, that is where there's that concern of saying Northwestern Energy holds complete, you know, liability out of that. But if it is your contractor, I think there was just that concern of conflict, right? Because you obviously have contractors that work for you on the city's behalf, so that language has been added here, so I think it was just to, but I can certainly take those concerns back.
So Doug, what's your proposal?
Well, it is just first reading, but,
Yeah. So we can.
my proposal is to delay it till after May 1st.
We have many thumbs locked up on that. So.
I don't have a real proposal. I guess I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but I could maybe, you know, we could do it a couple of ways. I don't know if we could continue the first reading, maybe, or we could pass the first reading and then, you know, you could always defeat it next week too.
Yeah. And let Kathy bring some, go do some research and bring some information back to us.
I mean, I'm not trying to put up a huge roadblock, but, and I'll blame Rich, he's the one who brought it up. That was a good question, but.
So probably the best form of action that we have done, it passes for the first reading for like a week.
Defer.
You know what I mean, to get that, because if we have changes, which would be significant, we have to do a week in between anyway, and do a public notice that there's changes to the first reading. So it would be better to just defer for 1 week
Okay.
and bring it back.
And from a non-legal standpoint, I would just say if we could work towards something maybe in between where we're at. So it doesn't need to be as restrictive as it was, but maybe not just a complete release. If we could get somewhere in between, particularly, you know, I'm personally less worried about the dollars and more about who's gonna kind of take charge of this when it happens. So if you guys could, that would be my request, if we could come up with some language in between.
So Kathy will go back and she'll talk to their attorneys and they'll get a hold of Tucker and they'll work something out. They'll do some wordsmith to this and see what we'll bring it back to us next week.
Yep.
Okay, is that a motion to defer till next week? Defer first reading till next week?
Yeah,
Need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'd second it.
okay. Motion to defer first reading of ordinance number 2022-385-131 to next week. Any discussion on that? Yes.
I would just like to ask if, did this just come up because it's renewal time, or
Yes.
is it another purpose?
No.
No, that's
Just
it.
because it's.
Any other discussion on this motion?
Just to echo what Doug said, we're not trying to make this difficult or onerous here, just wanna
No, it's
be responsible.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, see no other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Aye.
Clute,
Okay.
Bragg,
Aye.
Rhoda, Mayor Hampton.
Aye. Thank you for doing that. Departmental items, 8.1. Chief of Police is gonna come up here and talk to us about 8.1.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, last week I asked you to surplus 2 firearms. We had to do them in 2 separate documents. One was for Detective Sergeant Sarah Rogers, who's leaving the department this Friday. The other was for Detective Captain Casey Spinsby, who is gone as of today. The cost of the weapons that we surplus last week to buy a new one is $418.59. And I'm asking that we authorize them to purchase those firearms or used ones at that cost, and then we can buy brand new firearms with that money.
Need a motion to approve on 8.1.
Move to approve.
Need to approve, need a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner Smith. Any discussion on this topic? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Aye.
Clute,
Aye.
Bragg,
Aye.
Rhoda,
Aye.
Mayor Hampton.
Aye. We're gonna do the same deal on 8.2. Need a motion to approve this.
Move to approve 8.2 also.
And a second, please.
Second,
Commissioner Smith. Any discussion on this topic?
I'd just like to make a
Yes.
comment.
Sure.
I'd like to thank the officers of the force for their years of service.
Thank you, I'll pass it on to them.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, thanks, Kevin. Roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Aye.
Luce, Bragg,
Aye.
Rhoda,
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Motion to approve. We're good. That was 8.1. We need 8.2?
That was
That
it.
one was two.
Yeah. Motion to approve 8.2?
Oh,
We
we're
did that.
good.
Okay, good. Good to go. Thank you. 8.3, consider Park and Rec, Recreation Department to apply for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. I see we have our Park and Rec Director, LeBron Clark, here with us tonight. So LeBron, come on up and,
Thank you, Mayor Harrington and City Commissioners. What we're looking for here is just to take advantage of an opportunity that is brought to us from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which would be due on April 30th. So it's gone through our Park and Rec Board. We have a motion from the Park and Rec Board to recommend it for consideration. We would like then the consideration also from the commission to try to bring that to grant process and to hopefully be successful there. I know the match is a consideration. We have two members of our Huron Little League board here, and I guess they would like to speak in hopefully support of the application and any other ideas they might have.
Mayor,
just a second. Yes.
is this just, can you explain what it's for?
Okay, excuse me. What it's for, and we've gone through this process at least 2 times since the original incandescent lights that were there. I think some of you may be around long enough to remember those. There were 70 lights on those poles originally. And those were brought down to a number around 40 in that vicinity. And that would move then from the incandescent stage to the metal halide stage. And then every 10 years, they lose their lumens enough to look at something that would be improved, to be safe for players. So the last one we did at that field was 30 lumens infield, 20 lumens outfield. Now, since that time, on the adjacent field, the lights that were put in are 50 lumen infield, 30 lumens outfield. So we estimate right now that the lighting is in the neighborhood of, the last time we've had it checked with the light meter, is 20 lumens infield, 12 lumens outfield, and that was a couple of years ago. So I guess the Little League Board can mention this, but we hear about that particular situation every time we have Canaries come and play. I think, Mark, you've been there a few times when the Canaries games were. And they're used to championship lighting. We're only asking for something that's a recreational light. So, I guess without further explanation,
Thank you.
Good with that, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
so there are 4 old towers that would be replaced with this particular estimate. And there's only certain contractors that would have the equipment to do that. Because we're talking 70-foot towers and 80-foot towers that would be put in. So, I think they can introduce themselves. We have Matt and John here.
Just LeBron, before you jump off.
Sure.
Speaking of that lumen, sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. They're chomping
Yeah,
up.
I know. It's their supper time.
No, I guess not.
Speaking of the lumens and the output, is there a substantial jump then to go up even a higher level yet for prolonged?
Yes, there is for championship lighting. For instance, the only championship lighting I know of might be where the Canaries play in Sioux Falls. And most any other diamond that you have, for instance, Harmon and Sioux Falls and Aberdeen are mostly 30-20s.
Okay, so that's common in this league or at this level?
It is, but there's getting to be a lot more 50-30s.
Okay, thank you.
We good? I want to do it again.
State your name.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Matt Wenzel. I'm the president of the Huron Board, and this is John Fitzer, the vice president of the Huron Board, the Huron Little League. We're here to talk about the lighting, like Laurent said. We, as the board, financially, we don't have the money to do it. We have the hearts and the want, but we don't have the money to do it. We were given some money down the road back in the past from Mr. Bob Bushman, and that money is held for 5 years, and we get the interest off that starting 2022, which is around $4,000–4,500. Will take a lot of years to buy lighting at that pace, and the money for that Bob Bushman gave was for the Little League, the littler kids. The interest, not so much, but the majority of it was meant for the little kids, so every kid had a chance to play baseball. So we can't as a board fund this. But for safety reasons, you've all been out to the field, I've been out to Memorial. The field, the lighting is in the field play. Third base, first base side. And we've got lucky as of now, but so far, no players, they're not focused on the lighting in play. Nor should anybody be focused on the lighting in play. They're focused on the ball to get the out to win the game. That's what they're focused on. So we're here asking for help with what Ron's done from the city to make it safer and better for our kids. Canaries baseball, when they come up here, they always complain, and some of even the Legion kids complain, on a high fly ball, it leaves the light and then comes back down through the light because they're not high enough or bright enough. So I mean, to me, we're leaving our kids with a disadvantage. For baseball this year, it's been incredible. We have a lot of kids out. There's a lot of drive for baseball right now, and I think it's our time to put it in for the kids. And it's a big project. And like for instance, the scoreboard. We here on Little League paid for pretty much all we could, and the grant, we got a $30,000 grant.
$30,000, yep, from the community foundation, and we put in $30,000 of our own money into that scoreboard.
So
we have put a considerable investment into part of the field there. As far as the lights go, it just comes down to a safety issue. I know Aberdeen, their light poles are about the same, their towers are about the same age. One of them came down onto the field, the whole tower tipped onto the field. And so there's just a lot of concerns with that, and with the grant that's available and the amount that's available there, I just think it's times, like Laurent said, that grant is available every year, but it's not always for the same amount. So next year maybe it's half of that amount or a third of that amount. So I think now is the right time to do it and to go after that and make that, just make the field safer for kids, make it a better field, make it more attractive to teams coming into play here.
it'd be nice to get some, like we were talking, nice to get back that amateur ball or that wood bat
Right.
that was gonna come, that looked at us a few years
Right,
ago.
we're trying to look long-term at baseball in Huron, things that we can bring back to Huron that they've had in the past. The location of the field, it's an awesome venue. We're looking at, right now we're working with, trying to get, Stockwell Engineering is working on some plans to maybe redo the stadium, and if that comes to fruition, the Little League will be putting in a lot of work to raise the money and the funds for that. So we have a lot of plans for the future, and this is just one thing that we needs to get done. It, you know, for the safety of everything and for, like I said, to make it a more desirable place to play.
Did you say that the towers are maybe in danger of falling down?
Could be, you know, we don't know. I don't know how, you know, if you can test that or not, but I do know that one of Aberdeen's fell down there about the same age, so. And in fact, in a windstorm up there. Luckily, nobody was on the field when that happened, but I'm guessing if the wind's blowing that hard, nobody's on the field anyway.
I think
Could be.
the big thing is the safety. It's a safety, if we go out there and look at it, them two big towers sitting right there for left fielder, third baseman going back for fly ball. For first baseman, right fielder going back for a fly ball. It's right in their way. It's right in their zone.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
What was wrong with the old scoreboard?
The lighting, the bulbs wasn't as bright.
Couldn't see it.
Couldn't see it as
During
well from the
daylight hours,
stands.
you
We
cannot see
spent
the squirrels.
$30,000 on this new one.
So when,
You couldn't have repaired the other one?
no, it was too far gone with the technology.
Yep.
I can answer a little bit of that, because I ran the scoreboard for a lot of years, and a lot of times it didn't even work. It didn't even work. It'd light up, you'd be sitting there, and if you're gonna go to put a strike down or something, and you hit a button, boom, it's black.
I just wondered about that. We didn't know anything about this new scoreboard. All of a sudden, there's a new scoreboard out there.
Looks good.
It's our place.
Yeah.
We still are in charge of that place out there. So if you're gonna make new adjustments and stuff like that, bring it to the commission. You got,
Okay.
you know, it just makes sense, you know. We would do this, we do the same thing for a building that Park and Rec has over here. You know, it has to come through us, because we'll be responsible for it. My question for that was that, and also with David Lockett Stockwell, you know, where do you think you're gonna get that money? That's gonna be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right, yep,
I mean, we're talking about $75,000 here.
right.
Funding,
We'll be doing some fundraising.
fundraising, funding.
That's a lot of pie sales.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Don't dream little, dream big.
Yeah, I know, and I go along with it. You got any questions?
So we're, just so I understand the funding, so the 154 is the match portion, and so you guys are saying you're requesting that the city pay the entire 154?
Right.
Because, you know, last week when it was brought forward, there was, an idea that there would be more buy-in from your group.
Right.
But, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, again, it's not our place, so it's, I go sit in Matt's house once in a while, but I don't pay his payment there.
And also that money, we can't touch it. So if you were told that, that's not how it is.
Well, we didn't know the information
That's
that
right.
was in the endowment.
Mhm.
Right,
And so
yeah.
now that's been established, but.
Yep.
That's why we're here. That's the main reason we're here. There's money there, but our hands are tied.
And that's the reason we put that with the South Dakota Foundation, was so that it wouldn't be spent all at once. Bob Bushman wanted that to last indefinitely, and that's
And
the
if
way it
it's
was.
designated for Little League, it probably really isn't appropriate
Right.
for Memorial
Right.
Stadium anyway.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, that's not a Little League facility.
Right, yeah. And he just wanted to make it feasible for all kids to play Little League baseball. He didn't want anybody to be left out because they couldn't afford it or anything like that. And, he had a passion for baseball and for Little League, and so that's go a long ways toward that too. But yeah, it's not available for us as far as, paying for things like this.
So I guess my question, and I don't know, more just trying to understand it than anything else. You say it's not your facility, but you did raise $30,000 for the scoreboard, which I think is great. It looks wonderful. It's great to have enhancements out there.
And I guess I didn't know you guys weren't aware of that.
And then, well, and it's just, it's good that, again, we should have been handled different procedurally, but it's great.
Right.
We love the enhancements out there. So
Right.
that part of it is good. And just when you look at that and say, you were able to raise funds for that, you're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands for an expansion later, and yet on this one piece, you're saying we can't ask you to participate at all. That'd be the piece I'm trying to understand.
Right, because we are going to be doing it for the other part, for the other portion of the park.
And the other problem, of course, Rich, is we got a deadline of April 30th to put this grant application in. They're penniless basically at this moment in time.
Right.
Even if they said, we will do some fundraising, that won't materialize in the next month.
Right.
So I think the issue will come down, my way of thinking, is either we scotch the project or we do pony up the whole 154,000.
Well, I would like to see if we could come up with some commitment, and, you know, I mean, again, last week it was kind of mentioned that we'd split 75-75, but I know.
That wasn't mentioned by us.
And I was just, and even where it was mentioned here, there was no guarantees made or anything, that was just a part of the discussion.
That shouldn't have been happening, because that wasn't by us.
Right.
Well, I think it was a hope that we had, and based on information that we didn't have really developed as to your funding, we did know Mr. Bushman generously donated, but we didn't know how much, and we didn't know if it was tied up or not.
No.
And so apparently it's not quite as much as we're led to believe, and then it is tied up. So I was also thinking, well, if you had a lot of money, even if it was in the foundation, you could maybe go out and borrow your share based on the expectation that the bank would get repaid from the annual interest allotment you were given. But that's only gonna be $4,000 or $5,000 a year. And then, like Mr. Fitzer said, perhaps that's not even legal as far as the request, because it was designated for Little League and not for an adult baseball facility.
And where we are right now is that we still got to vote on whether we want to authorize Huron to go ahead with the grant. That doesn't mean that we're gonna, get the grant. Doesn't
Right.
mean that we're gonna have anything solved before, what do you say, June, Huron?
That's when it normally goes through the national process, and they announce that it's available. And then the local, I shouldn't say local, the state has a board that rates these, and then they let us know in June normally.
You're fairly optimistic though, is that correct?
I'm just saying that it's already been approved, a similar project in the past, and they did have a $50,000 cap 2-3 years ago that now has been expanded to where they're funding as much as $450,000 projects.
I'm a big fan of these grants, and I'm a big fan of the, the field and the improvements and the safety and everything you guys have mentioned. I guess I would feel better about it if we could, even if, again, 75 was not something you committed to, or even something that Ron really, it was a hope more than anything else as we were discussing it, but I would like to think that you guys could maybe come forward with something that would make it easier for me to vote on it. If you guys could say, we're committed, you're saying you can raise hundreds of $1,000s in fundraising for these others enhancements.
Which will probably take years to do that, though.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen overnight either.
No, and we're not saying we need to have the money in the bank before he signs the grant. We're just saying, I personally would like to say, coming out of this, I'd like to hear the organizations that are gonna use that field come forward and say, we're willing to put a little skin in the game. And I'm not even saying a number, I'm certainly not saying 75, but for you guys to come here and say how important it is, and yet say we wanna put 0 towards it, that's the piece I would just love to see you guys make, since you're saying on other things, you've been willing to do some fundraising.
We have made modifications to the, our Huron Little League, the baseball has made modifications to the field. You see it when you drive by. Scoreboard. Up until now, we put a lot into it. And it's gonna take scoreboard, then lighting. There's things we can do in steps and stages. This could be a 3-year project.
The safety feature that we're looking at is the lights.
That's huge.
Prominent number one.
Absolutely.
That's why I asked you about a new scoreboard, where we still got a problem with our lights. That's safety for me. The scoreboard's not safety. Some kid's not gonna run into that scoreboard. Some kids may run into the lights and we have a problem. That's my concern. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's all, it's just, and I know what, you guys weren't the ones here last week, you know, kind of speaking on your behalf, but I would like to think if there's gonna be $150,000 coming from this grant, and then the city's gonna have to pony up a large part of it too, I'd love to see you guys be willing to at least play some role in that if you believe it's as important a project as you.
We'd have to,
It is important, yeah, we'd have to talk to the
yeah,
board.
we'd have to take it back to.
And I just don't believe we're gonna be able to.
And you can't commit, I mean, any dollar amount?
Not right now, not right tonight.
Well, no,
We'd have
not
to get
tonight, no,
back.
certainly not tonight, not without talking to your board, but I'm saying, do you believe that you'd be able to come back with some sort of a participation, just to, you know, so that we don't, you know, we're not looking at bearing 100% of the cost?
Right. I'm gonna guess probably not, just because we did just put 30 grand in there.
And, you know, even if that meant deferring this couple $100,000 project, if the lighting is an immediate safety need now, and this grant is available now, couldn't some of the fundraising and the planning that you're doing moving forward towards that, could we commit a portion of that toward this? I don't,
Right.
again, I'm not trying to be hard on you guys, 'cause it's a great thing that we're doing. I just, it's, you know, you say you had money to come up with for that, you say you're gonna come up with hundreds of thousands for this, but now you're here tonight saying we can't do anything for this part of it. That's the part I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around.
I'm gonna say that we probably only you can only go the well so many times. You know, so I'm gonna say that we're gonna have to pick one or the other then. When we did lighting, and then that renovation that'll be put off way down the road. You know, there's only so much that the community can put forth.
Well, you know, and I mean, you know, maybe this could be a part of, you know, part of their commitment to this lighting, could be a part of what they fundraise for, because again, it's not like we're not gonna have the money from you guys before we apply from the grant anyway. So, you know, is there something where as you do your fundraising for that, you could just bump that up a little bit more? Just, you know, again.
Yeah, we haven't even, you know, we're still waiting on the stuff from Stockwell to get here, the plans and stuff, and so we haven't even started the fundraising portion of that yet. And so we don't even know what that's gonna look like. Like I said, that could take years to do that. That's not something that's gonna happen overnight, that's not something that's gonna happen probably in the next year or 2 years. You know, my kids probably won't play on it. But we need to start thinking long-term now, or nobody ever will. You know, everybody's been talking about that stadium for years and years and trying to get something done there. And now we finally have a board, you know, that is looking down the road rather than just till our kids get done. You know, my kids are done there in 3 years. You know, Tyson is a freshman, so yeah, 3 years he'll be done.
Same with me.
Tyson, or Tegan, my senior, he won't ever play on it because he's done after this year, you know, unless we bring back amateur ball, and so those are some of the things that we're looking at too. They could play on it then. But it's just, you know, all these things need to be done or they'll never get done. They've been talked about for years and years and years. You know, and now I think is the time. And I don't think we can guarantee you money for the lights. I just don't. Because of the other plans that are in the works. And there's only so much that you can raise at one time, so.
Can I ask a couple questions on the diamond, or the field? So, who plays on that?
That one there, it's mostly Legion, Junior Legion. Springtime, it's varsity and junior varsity. You know, the Canaries come up once a year. We would love to get an amateur team back in there.
State baseball.
Yep.
We could hold the state 13, we could
Yeah,
hold the state
and that's-
14. We got prime, we got 2 fields side by side.
And we have a hard time getting those state tournaments because of those things, the lights and the field in general. You know, so again, we're looking at bringing in more tournaments down the road if we can get these changes done. But right now, if they have the choice between our stadium and somebody that's got that new updated lighting, they're gonna go with the new updated lighting. A lot of those games are at night. And if you lose the ball going up, and then all of a sudden it appears again coming back down, you know, that can be a problem. And so we have had trouble getting tournaments here, state tournaments especially.
As far as local matches, the
Yep.
local games, John, how many of those can be played on Clock Field? I know Clock Field was originally, the concept was to be a practice, so-called a practice
Right.
field.
The teeners play on Clock Field.
In anticipation of trying to gain more state events.
Right.
That was part of the
Right,
push
right.
on it, but How many of those night games, I guess, is what I'm asking, because I understand Clark Field is set up for light illumination properly.
Right.
Is it a
That's
distance
mostly
to bases?
the teeners that play on
situation?
Clark Field. No, they can be, we play our spring ball most of it on Clark Field. We're trying to get, and that's, the reason for that is because the field on Memorial doesn't dry out as quickly. The wood fence prevents the snow and a lot of the water from going out as quickly as it does on Clark. And so that field is a lot more wet for a longer period of time.
And not to mention, I mean, the city likes it, nobody playing on their Tubby Canaries game, so they can really put some TLC and make it looking sharp for when the Canaries come. That's why we don't play on there now. If we had, you know, if everything was up and running, as the baseball players, they'd love to be on Memorial. But we stay off there so Luron's crew can get it all looking good for when Canaries show up. So, but when you have double headers, if you got your Legion and Junior Legion both playing, there's two fields there for them to use.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the field itself and the layout for spectators, I mean,
there's not
it's
many in the state.
unmatched in the state.
Yeah, and everybody who comes here says that. We gotta go the distance. There's so much more we could do to it.
The experience that we've had in the past is when there's major projects like this, major capital improvements that need to happen. I'll use the tennis association as an example. You know, they approached us and you know, the number of tennis players were pretty low at that point. You know, and they moved into that co-op financing scenario with the new tennis courts. I don't remember the breakdown of it. I know the city put some money into that, but I think a lot of that may have been back in the school district. But there was also a considerable amount of private money raised for it, if I remember correctly. And for those types of capital improvements, I just kind of one with what Commissioner Bragg is saying, a lot of times it just works a little smoother when the associations can put some skin in the game financially. Understand maybe you can't reach the 75K number, but I think the direction that I guess I'm saying is if we can move the needle off zero for some kind of commitment, you know, that would bring some meat to the table.
Even if that's just, I mean, there's some, you know, like you talked about for the scoreboard, the community foundation and some of that. I mean, even if you guys would just, because we obviously can't, the city can't go to the community foundation and ask for money to help us pay for the lights. But if you guys say, we're gonna commit to doing part of it, and then you go to some of those local groups and ask for some money, you know, I think there are some ways without you having to go door knocking, you know.
Sure.
I think and again, it's not something we're saying, okay, if this gets approved in June, we're gonna be coming saying, write us the check today. But I think if we could just get a commitment of some of those funds, even if that meant into, because if you're talking about, you're done with the scoreboard, right?
Yep.
And you're talking about, it could be a couple of years before you start the big fundraising project.
Oh, it started before a couple.
No, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's gonna take a couple.
It'll take a few years to
But we
get it
plan
up.
to start that as soon as we can.
Okay.
But, and so if you're fundraising for lights and then, you know, it's gonna put everything back a long ways.
Yep.
Like on May 7th, it's Canaries, which
That's,
is
I
sort of
think the
funny.
other wild card in it too, guys, the availability of the lights and the installation teams. Would that even happen this year, Laurent?
You would have to bid it in, let's say, July, and then hopefully do it in the fall, because you don't wanna have that big equipment on there during the playing season.
Right.
You wanna try and do it in the fall, and then do your repairs and be ready for the next spring.
Well, actually, I was just gonna say, I was gonna wrap it up, go ahead then.
Well, I want to say something because I'm kind of feeling like we're putting some pressure on them to come up with some money, even though they said they can't come up with any money. And I just want to remind everybody on the commission that that's a city facility we're talking about. And that we would be improving by applying for this grant. And we'd be only paying 50% of the cost of a major improvement that would really bring that up to speed. Plus, we have an organization here that has already put some skin in the game in terms of improving that facility by the scoreboard, and has launched, they have started a major process to really totally renovate that thing. Now, it's very ambitious. I've heard the spiel. They came to the Park and Rec meeting, and it will take a long time, but I think they're very committed to doing it. They're gonna get Stockwell. They've got Stockwell on the line with the assistance of Park and Rec. They had a little leftover trust money that they're throwing at Stockwell, and they're gonna get a nice plan in place, and they'll have costs associated with that, and with that, they should be able to launch that fundraiser, and they're gonna improve a city facility with a lot of effort. So I was hoping last week that we would be able to get some contribution, just so we can make our money go farther. That's what we're trying to do.
I understand.
As good
I understand.
stewards of our money, and it just didn't pan out. I mean, it isn't there, and I don't think it's because they don't want to put skin in the game. I just don't think they have it at this moment, but they have done it in the past, just recently with the new scoreboard, very beautiful scoreboard. I just went by it this weekend, beautiful. And with these plans, if they come to fruition, that would be some facility out there. So I guess I'm for, and I'll make a motion right now, if I may, Mayor,
Yeah, that's
just to
fine.
keep things going here, and see if I get a second on it, but I'll make a motion that we commit to funding 50% of the total estimate for the grant funds, which I guess is in the amount of $154,500. And also authorize Huron Clock to make application for that project.
I'll make the second.
Okay.
Is there a second some discussion?
So,
So we have a motion and a second, now we got discussion, go ahead.
so how, just from our flow, how does that work? Like, is that, because it didn't come through the regular cap asset program, is this something we could put some of the COVID monies towards then? Or how would this work since it didn't come through?
You could either,
We're doing it on the reserves, but I'm wondering if we want to, since we're having the discussion about the COVID monies,
well,
rather than pull.
you're exactly right. It'd have to be supplemented into the budget through reserves, or consider the COVID money, which is technically reserves at this point. So,
What I was gonna say is, we're gonna let him put the grant in. We don't know if we're even gonna get the grant. We don't know if it's gonna be 150 or 300,000. We don't know that. We'll have him put the grant in. If he gets the grant, then we can say, okay, now we can have this discussion we're talking about tonight. You know, then that's when we start jiggling around, looking around and see what's going on. You know, these guys, they can go back to their board, talk to your board, tell them what's going on, tell them what the needs are, what our concerns are. That comes through, we can have you back, we'll talk, we'll make a decision on what we're gonna do with it. Because they can't look away from $150,000. We're gonna raise $150,000, so we can't look away from it just because we don't have $150,000.
So if, how do those grants work? But if we would have to take action on Doug's vote, because if he is approved for the grant, part of him signing the application is us committing that we would come up with 154, right?
Yeah.
Once he sends that grant in, so.
No, not necessarily once he sends it in, I don't believe it. Ron, you saying that? Once it's sent in,
That
it's
is-
good to go and everything?
That is a requirement of the grant, that you
Yeah.
should
So
show.
that puts us in the corner.
I don't think we can say that if we get the grant, we can come back and put the coals on these guys again.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. But what I'm trying to say though is the fact that I don't want these guys walking out here tonight saying, oop, we got the 300,000, forget that project, we'll work on our little, we'll build the concession stand out there. I don't want you walking out here. If you're gonna walk out here and start raising money, let's talk about really raising some money And if you can help with different things like we got out there that we have to put money into, then help us with it. I just don't want you walking away going, hey, we did, we're gonna get $300.
Yeah, that's nowhere in our intention.
We're not leaving till this field
We are
starts, so we're
stewards of
here.
the taxpayers' money, and this is on you too, and people are listening to this. And I'm not saying that just to, because that's what we sit here and try to do every night.
Yep.
Yep.
I agree with you. That being said, I think tonight we need to take action. I would, ask you guys to consider that as a part of your overall fundraising, because we don't, since it didn't come through our normal budgeted, that's a big, 154, we voted on some other things that are big numbers tonight, but this one isn't anywhere in the budget, so having to pull
Right.
that large amount out of a totally unbudgeted thing is an unusual, process, so, yeah. I think-
It comes down to participation too. I'm gonna walk down the street out here tomorrow and somebody's gonna jump me, but my daughter don't play out there. Got a lot of, you have to answer, sit up here, you answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, I understand.
And that's participation. How many kids you got playing out there? How often?
More than we've had in a long time.
We had 35 out for spring ball. We haven't had 2 teams on spring ball. We also have 2 teams for summer ball, which hasn't happened the 8 years I've been a part.
Yep.
And that's
full-
good. We
full
appreciate
step.
that.
Full
And
schedules, junior and,
There'll be-
junior legion and legion. so
There's
yeah.
6 teams total. There's 2 playing now, 4 that'll play this summer down at them fields. That hasn't happened since I've been a part.
And if you're able to get some of the future stuff you're talking about, that's all
That's-
pretty exciting stuff.
Yep, it's gonna be huge.
And,
Be huge.
the public can come watch it. Help us raise money there at our gate concession stand.
And also, I think we provide, people take care of that field and everything. I mean, the city's putting money into that facility out there every
Mhm.
day,
Yep.
every week.
Yep.
I mean, that's something you gotta understand too. I think you guys pay $1,000 a year or something like
Yep.
that for that. That doesn't push the needle, what we put in out there. But that's enough of that stuff. Let's just talk. Let's vote on. We ready to go?
Here, I gotta say my 2 cents worth. Sorry, but I'm gonna repeat some, but some of it's not gonna be repeated, but if you take the scope of the 2 projects, the lighting and the scoreboard, and I know this is just the lighting, but if you take this lighting and the scoreboard, that's a $210,000 commitment, basically, right? 154 and 60. So, and if the Little League has already put up 30,000, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're putting 30,000 against a $210,000 project, basically. That's pretty good for Little League. Where
I'm not
Commissioner
following you
Smith,
on any of that.
where Commissioner Smith did talk about the tennis, and I agree with him on that. The school did ante up most of that because it's on school property, where this would not be on school property. Baseball is not a high school sanctioned sport yet. It's a club sport so far. So they don't have that to fall back on. And to address the lighting situation, it's more of a safety thing, like the mayor said, than just, I want to see the ball.
Right.
I understand it's both, so. And the excitement is the highest it's been for the last, that I know, probably 6 years anyway, maybe even 8.
Yeah, it's-
But, so, I guess I would be in favor of it, and also, what I'm not in favor of is the Stockwell thing. My engineer will tell you what I think of consultants, okay? So, but maybe they didn't know that, maybe the Little League didn't know that. We already did a study down there with the whole 3rd Street and the whole thing, that corner was all included in all that, so I don't care for that much, but that's your guys' deal. So I guess I'm in favor of it, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't want to ramble on because I can't talk very well tonight, but anyway.
Any other discussion on Doug's motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Vote.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
I think that's
Okay, 8.4, and that's Doug. Doug's still here.
What a big hell of a night to come ask for money, huh? Thanks, fellas.
Look at all the knowledge you gained,
You're
though.
batting, you're batting 4th, Doug.
I was just sitting there thinking when I served on the Little League Baseball board 100 years ago. Yeah, tonight, you guys had approved out of capital projects, a new operating system in the Fine Arts Building and in the Campus Center. We have the Fine Arts Building one moving forward as the HVAC people are going through there. They're finding many things that are non-operational to make the HVAC complete. And so it seems like the time to, while they are there doing it, putting pieces in and they have things opened up, to go ahead and fix the thing correctly. You have to remember the HVAC system in that building had not had a lot of attention for many, many years. And so this is by no means the end of it. I will come later this summer when we start looking at next year with more requests for the HVAC. So, but tonight is to cover the additional cost of that operating system to bring our HVAC up to speed more. Is that a correct term? To address the HVAC.
Move to approve the request.
Okay, second?
I'll second, and that's for 736730.
Correct. I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Second
I
by
didn't bring that sheet.
Commissioner Bragg. Now, any discussion on this?
Just for, again, just for clarification, Doug, that's the Fine Arts Building, not,
That is the Fine Arts Building, correct.
yeah,
It's not the campus
not
center.
the campus.
Just the Fine Arts.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Close.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Rhodes. Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're done, go home. I need.